All right. I'd like to call to order the Business and Governance meeting for July 12th, 2018. Cynthia, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we have a quorum.
And no non-agenda public comment?
No public comment.
All right. So we'll go to the first item for action, staff recommendation to approve Microsoft Enterprise licensing. David Bond.
That's better. Our current 3-year Microsoft licensing agreement expires in October. This is a comprehensive licensing agreement that covers all Microsoft desktop servers databases. We released an RFP and received 6 quotes. All were very similarly priced. Microsoft licensing is very complex, and it's important to have a knowledgeable vendor. PCMG is our current vendor, and they've done a good job. So we're recommending that we award the 3-year deal to them again. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. I don't see anybody in the queue. Ready to vote? Make the motion. Second. Get Charlie Hawquist, the mover, Val Hoy on the second.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
All right, second up, staff's recommendation to approve Care Council contract, Marcel Rossman.
Good morning. I wanted to add a couple notes to what's in your staff report on Care Council. It does say in there they've been providing services to us since 2002. In addition to being available for members to call, they attended our help day, our open enrollment day. They did a Medicare overview at our open enrollment kickoff, and their customer service surveys show that 90% of respondents say that they helped them with their issue, and 82% they would say they would recommend the service to someone else. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions, but we do recommend approving the contract.
All right, no speakers?
I have a couple questions.
Is Almas in there?
Yes.
Oh, I don't see it on here.
Oh, sorry about that. It's on, he's in the queue on this.
There he is. Now I see him. Almas.
Thanks, Marcel. Just have a couple of questions. What's the annual volume of calls that come in and historically?
That is something that we would like to work on. The utilization is less than 2% of our members. I don't know the exact volume, but less than 2% are using it.
Okay, because one of my questions is $100,000 doesn't seem like a whole lot of money, and is that something we could do in-house? Would it be cheaper to do in-house?
No.
No.
It would not be cheaper to do in-house. The people that they have at Care Council are actually healthcare experts. It's run out of Stanford Healthcare Center up in Northern California, and they are able to answer very specific, detailed questions. They help members do analysis. Should I sign up for this plan or should I sign up for this plan? They help them with, they've tried to get an appointment or tried to get a referral and haven't been able to, so they'll help them get that referral. So it would be a significant training effort on our part, so I'm not sure it would make sense to try and pull that in.
Okay, and my last question is do they offer any chat or online services if somebody doesn't want to use the phone?
No, it's just phone services,
Okay.
which remember for the population we have.
For
that-
now?
For now, that is their preference, that they would
Yes.
like to talk to a live body. And they are very responsive when people do calls. We have really been trying to promote it. It's right at the very beginning of our healthcare booklet. We have them very prominently at all of our events to try and get people to use them more often. And we do refer people to them when they call. If they actually end up talking to one of our healthcare staff who can't help them, we refer them over to Care Council.
Thank you.
Can you make it part of, like when people are separating from drop or what have you, part of that counseling session so that they're more aware of it? I'm assuming it's in the package, but.
And I can hear Cynthia behind me. It is. It is included in the retirement counseling sessions.
Thank you.
And remember, too, that healthcare, as almost knows well, this is all a pass-through to the city, so it's not an impact actually on SDCERS budget, but it is an impact to the city.
All right. No one else in the queue? Cynthia? We have Val as the mover and Charlie as the second.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
And that passes 5-0. All right, item 3, staff's review of board rules 4.0. which is connected purchase of service credits. And 4.3, cost of service credits, 4.50, method of payment, and recommended changes, Susan Youngflesh. I don't think she does want to speak, okay.
Who are all these people that are coming to the dais?
Well, when Tanasi's not here, you actually get to meet people.
Good morning. I have nothing to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right? Then let's go ahead and move, Cynthia? Roberta Spoon is the mover, and Val Hoy is a second.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
That too passes 5-0. Item number 4, staff's recommendation to revise the Chief Executive Officer Charter and committee's charter. Susan.
Thank you. I just want to highlight that within the revision of the committee charter, we're recommending that the board president be responsible to create ad hoc committees. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
I have a question.
I see Alma's in the queue. You're going to, go ahead.
Just a couple questions. The minimum committee size, what's the rationale for that? I just was curious because I think is it 5 or?
I can help answer that, Susan. It's historic, so I'm going to take that because I've been here a little longer. It was set up historically depending on the volume at the time. We've looked at it and we haven't taken issue with the amount, but I do recognize that different committees have a minimum maximum requirement that are a number of trustees that are different. But it's historically based. For instance, the Disability Committee has quite a few members, and the rationale at that point was that they wanted a good share of trustees on that committee, given that the Disability Committee deals with members uniquely in firefighters, police, whatnot. And Business and Governance Committee has a minimum of just 3, or maximum of 3, I think. I'm sorry, not business.
Not a maximum.
They've got a different number, and so it just varies.
And then the other question I had was, when is the last time we had an ad hoc committee even created? Because this makes some changes to who can do that and under what circumstances.
Well, we did have, it wasn't an ad hoc committee, but with the creation of the CEO search, I believe, there was a committee. And so that we were looking at ad hoc. And if you look at what the red lines for the charter, it would be, we eliminated that subcommittees could be created by committees. And so we're putting everything in the board president's hands now to centralize the authority to create subcommittees and ad hoc committees as needed.
I can address, maybe, I don't want to jump in front of Bobby, but this came up in a conversation that Greg and I had, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, because we were talking about an action that I thought should be investigated by a committee of the board, not just the staff. And so I said, can we just form an ad hoc committee? And in my view, the idea of a committee is you want to get a decent cross-section of people, as well as people who are going to be active and are going to be engaged, but also a cross-section typically between elected and appointed members. And so I asked Greg if we could appoint a committee and get started on this, and he said, well, actually, no, you can't. You need to have a board vote and everything else that goes along with that, so you have to wait and do a board vote. And so then I think it might have been Greg's suggestion, on a lot of boards, the president could appoint an ad hoc committee between meetings, and then the ad hoc committee obviously reports back to the board, so the board isn't having any loss of authority over the issue. They're just, we can get started and we don't need to have a board vote on it. So Greg actually suggested putting this amendment in, and I said that sounded fine to me.
I would agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. My only other question in this area is, there's one section that talks about placing items on the agenda and how any 2 board or independent non-board members could request that a particular item be placed on an agenda. Not that I've observed that that's a frequent occurrence
No.
around these parts, but it does seem like a pretty small threshold if there ever were a situation, where one or two members want to put something on. That seems like a pretty low threshold to me. My experience in some other governing bodies is that there's a higher threshold to sort of be able to put something onto the agenda at the request of members. So I would almost encourage us, if not this time, that in the future we consider increasing that threshold a little bit.
Like maybe a petition with 400 signatures?
maybe not quite as dramatic, but just 2 seems pretty small for a body of our size.
It sounds like experience speaking.
Good and bad.
Right.
Okay, so Almas is on the ad hoc committee to work on the,
Thank you.
All right. Bobby?
In my small committee, the audit committee, there are just a couple of instances where we would appoint an ad hoc committee, and my concern would be the delay. 2 that come to mind are selection of auditors. We all don't review those proposals, and search committees. So putting the delay aside, I would agree with it, but if there's some way that we can make sure that we're not in a situation where we have to wait a month or 2 months to get those committees approved.
And if I can respond to that, having the board president have the ability to create the ad hoc committee and put together the members of it actually will facilitate doing just that in between committee meetings. I know the audit committee does not meet monthly, so
Right.
it provides that opportunity and that flexibility for the board president to support the governance of the organization. And similarly with our board meetings being every other month, if something should arise for whatever reason, such as searches for the leadership team if need be, or response to emergencies if we have a disaster event. I know the board would like some more transparency and oversight to see what we're doing. It provides more flexibility, but still is a very strong part of our governance structure.
Great.
so I'm in favor of it for that reason. I think it allows the board in between meetings to be flexible and take some action or do something through a ad hoc committee, or at least not really take any action, but get involved in the process and be prepared to report back to the board at the next meeting rather than waiting. And Bobby, if the audit committee wanted an ad hoc committee established under these revised rules, all you'd have to do is call me and say, will you appoint a committee? Here's who we want, here's what we want to do, and it could be done immediately.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Val, are you done going out of turn?
I apologize, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Cynthia? And we got Bobby on the mover and Val on the second.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
And that passes 5-0.
I don't think you've noticed, but I'm in the queue.
Go ahead, Val. Hang on, let me get the timer going.
Following up on Almas's comment, perhaps that should be taken as direction to staff to investigate whether, in organizations of our size, the agendizing, to make a noun into a verb, of items should have a higher threshold.
Will do, thank you.
All right. Can't see anything. Item number 6, item number
5.
5, sorry. Staff's recommendation to revise the contracting policy and delegation of authority to execute contracts and other documents, donation policy, education policy, ethical conduct, compliance, and training policy, fiduciary council policy, securities litigation policy, and fraud and criminal acts policy. And on item number 6, I am not reading all of that. It's Susan.
Thank you. I have 2 things I wanted to highlight. The first of which is that we're recommending that the policies be amended to allow the deputy CEO have signing authority. And then also, we're recommending that securities litigation policy be amended so that legal can file proofs of claims and settlements when needed. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, I keep looking at you like I'm looking at Tanasi, but I think we're good. All right, no one's in the queue. And Charlie's the mover, and Val is the second.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
And that moves, passes 5-0. Item number 6. Staff's review of board rules 3.0, 3.10, 320, 330, 340, 350, all the way through. Do I need to read all those? Good. All right. Anybody have any discussion on any of those items?
If I may, I'd like to point the committee to 3 things. So staff is recommending that the rules be amended to address the eligibility of a surviving spouse to receive the death while eligible benefit and the industrial death benefit as provided for in the city port and airport plan documents. Staff is also recommending that the rules be amended to address the procedure when a drop participant dies before all payments are made from the participant's drop annuity benefit, and to revise to state that a trust cannot be named as a beneficiary for a continuing benefit, but that cannot be paid in a lump sum. However, to avoid any unintended financial consequences, this rule can be waived by the CEO. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What was that last part about? What was the last part about a family trust?
That the trust can't be named as a beneficiary for a continuing benefit that cannot be paid in a lump sum. However, if needed, that rule can be waived by the CEO if there's an unintended financial consequence.
What would they constitute that?
So the discussion that was behind that was, for example, if there was a child that might that can't be named because they're limited due to their mental capacity or have some sort of other disability, and they have a trust in their name so that that child may be able to receive the benefit of a continuance instead of having a lump sum. So that might be like a special circumstance that might be considered for waiver if there's an unintended financial consequence.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense.
I don't have anyone in the queue. Does someone to make a motion? And Charlie's made the mover, and Val's made the second. Ready to vote?
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
And that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
And item number 7, staff's recommendation to approve the partial abatement of interest on one contribution under funding. I don't have that. Cynthia, you want to come up?
Would you like me to come up?
Yes, I would. This was a special circumstance, correct?
And very briefly, you know that our underpayment policy requires a full payment of interest. Of the thousands of accounts that we have reviewed and then needed to correct 100 or 200 of them, there are 5 other cases where we determined that the error was made over 10 years ago, should have been corrected at the time and wasn't caught. This is the 6th one that I have found out of all of those, and to be consistent and as appropriately directed by the board, we would like to waive just the interest portion of this one since October 2012 was discovered. And please let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
I'd just like to hear from legal counsel about the implications for this in terms of the IRS, in terms of our policies, and how we have required interest payments even in circumstances where the member was not at fault for the error.
Sure, thank you, Val. The board's policy, this recommendation is consistent with the board's policy. We always make an effort to collect the full amount unless the law would require otherwise, and recognizing the board's discretion. In this case, and the cases that Cynthia mentioned earlier, the situation where SDCERS was aware of the situation and failed to correct it properly. In such a case, the law recognizes that a public entity like SDCERS could be stopped, or there could be other equitable reasons for which we should not or could not collect. That legal process is consistent with the published opinion, the Krolikowski opinion that just came out last month concerning SDCERS' corrections. So the recommendation is consistent with the board's policy. It's consistent with the law as stated last month concerning SDCERS. You mentioned the IRS. The IRS guidelines, and I want to stress guidelines, say that we make reasonable efforts to collect, and I do believe that we are making reasonable efforts to collect in that we're collecting the principal and the interest accrued prior to our discovery of that.
Thanks, Johnny. And just briefly, why is this not differential treatment with respect to people from whom we have required full payment of interest?
We've consistently, when we discover an error, we've consistently collected the principal as well as the interest that is accrued on any overpayment. This is the minority of cases where historically we discovered the error and failed to correct it properly. And as a result of that delay in correcting it, additional interest has accrued. So it's the additional interest that becomes the exception here. And I wouldn't at this point call an exception because we have consistently waived that interest.
Thank you.
All right, no one else is in the queue. Val's been the mover, and Roberta has seconded.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
And that too passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And item number 8, last action item, staff's recommendation to revise the conflict of interest policy and code. Johnny Tran.
Thanks, Tom. Yesterday, the audit committee looked at this as well and didn't recommend any changes, but it's the responsibility of the Business and Governance Committee to make any recommendation changes and then push that on to the board tomorrow. I've highlighted a few of the substantive changes that staff is recommending to the conflicts policy and code in my staff report. I can mention a few now. One I want to clarify is that we're having the Deputy Chief Executive Officer file a Form 700 in Marcel's role as Chief Benefits Officer. She did that, but when she was promoted to a position that wasn't on the Form 700, the city says she doesn't have to report her interests, and I thought that would something we shouldn't do. We should have her disclose her interests similar to what trustees as well as the CEO does. But do you have any questions on any of the recommended changes? All right, thank you, Tom.
All right. And no one else is in the queue? Val has moved it. Roberta has seconded it.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
All right, move to, that's passed 5-0. Old business, report of overpayments of members exceeding 10,000. Marcel?
I don't have any additional comments on that.
All right,
Or any questions?
and we'll move to the status reports then. Legal compliance, Johnny Tran, anything?
Nothing to add, thanks.
All right. Information technology, David Bond.
Nothing to add.
And my favorite, Cynthia Queen, member services.
Thank you, Chairman Sullivan. I'm very happy to be here today. Board President Hoy and I will now spend the next hour discussing call wait times and
Looking
the
good.
various
Looking
successes
good.
of the call center. Thank you for this opportunity. I did want to talk about staff. We've had some big changes, as you read in the report. These staffing changes were known in advance and planned for in advance. And I'm thankful for the culture and family that we have here at SDCERS that always focuses on succession planning and future planning. So I'd like to give a big thank you to Mateo Osorio, who is one of our beloved retirement counselors for the last 10 years. He is happily retired after 17 years of service at the city. He is not in the audience. He is happily off being retired. We miss him and wish him well and want to thank him for his service. He is missed by many members. Secondly, I do have some folks here in the audience. You have previously met Shawnquana Pemberton, who is our supervising management analyst. She has done an amazing job here for the past 2+ years, turning the world around with the call center and making amazing call wait times the envy of the entire universe, and very thankful for her work. She actually started at SDCERS 10 years ago as the receptionist, so one of my favorite city success stories of promotional opportunities. Shawnquana is moving out of state to be with her family. She will be deeply missed, but she has done a fantastic job of preparing the world for her departure, which is evidenced by the 2 promotions that have resulted, both of which are internal promotions. I think it shows the depth of the talent at SDCERS and our desire for everyone to learn more. So I'd like to introduce you to Victoria Fedelizo. Victoria is replacing Shaq as a supervising management analyst, but we have switched some of the roles around. Victoria comes to us from finance, where she worked with Ted, and we continue to have a partnership as we make that transition, and again, very excited to be able to promote from within. Victoria has her bachelor's degree in public affairs and a master's degree in accountancy, but the cool thing is she used to work in a call center and has customer service experience, so it's a fabulous combination there. She's off to a great start, very happy to have her. Then I would like to introduce Andrea Valdez. You've met her before when we cheered for her amazing call wait times. And all that hard work in the call center paid off, and she competed and earned the promotion to become the call center supervisor. I've explained before this switch in roles. So Andrea has taken over as the call center supervisor. She's done a wonderful job rising to this challenge. She has a bachelor's degree in communications and is working on her accountancy certificate. Here was her first call center job, and previously she worked in finance and accounting. So it's the perfect combination of friendliness and math love that we have going on. So I'm very excited about that. Of course, that leaves an opening in the call center, and we are moving forward on that, but the whole team is working together wonderfully.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate you. And just as a final note, seriously, the favorite topic for Val and I is that I always like to analyze the call volume and the call wait times. This health open enrollment was very, very challenging and successful in that we had a major change in the provider. Sandra Clausen and Rosa Seja Manzo and Sarah Levy and the whole health team did a fantastic job handling that part. The call center out front did a great job helping them get those calls in. I looked at the last 2 years, and the June call volume has averaged 3,500. This year, not surprisingly, it was 1,000 phone calls more. And some of them were directed to Care Council, and they love Care Council, that has nurses and nurse practitioners answering the phones. And with all that extra volume, the call wait time stayed at 24 seconds, which is phenomenal considering how crazy it was. And we did look at July, as I always like to report. We're rocking it at 11 seconds right now. So with this whole transition, things are moving along very well. I appreciate the board's support of all the customer service work that we do, because we are here to serve our members. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Val.
I've missed you.
I've missed you too. And thank you, though, so much for your support, because in June, it can be it was certainly a big challenge, and we say, answer the phone for Val.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Cynthia. Shaquanda, thank you very much for all your years of service. Much appreciated. All right. And Marcel.
Good morning. Cynthia took a little bit of my thunder, but I wanted to talk about open enrollment this year. As she mentioned, this was a very challenging year. The City of San Diego contracts with the vendors that we use for retiree health care. And this year they went out for RFP, as they're required to do, and there was a change in vendors. It was a very complicated process. We worked very closely with city staff, but the end result was we had about 2,000 members who were going to have to change their health care provider. And we did have our booklets went out almost 2 weeks late this year, which is the main thing our members rely on to determine what they're going to do. So through all of that, staff really kicked in. We had additional people helping us. So my health team, Sandra Clausen, Rosa Ceja Menzo, Sarah Levy, Mercy Senko, and Barry Woods, all worked very hard. In addition to that, we pulled staff from all over the office. So we also had Jean Needham from Finance helped us out, Maria Gonzalez and Paul Detchen from BA helped out, Catherine Reinholz from Legal helped out. So it was a big team effort. I'm happy to say that we processed about almost 2,500 new enrollments. To compare that to last year, it was under 400 for last year. So we were able to get everybody enrolled. We did it without any overtime and got through the whole process. And now we're about to have July payroll run, which will have people get their first deductions for their new healthcare providers. So very happy with the process. It was, as I said, a significant amount of work this year. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Items 5, 6, and 7 are all finance and trust financial statements with Ted. You have anything to add, Ted?
Nothing with respect to the financial statements, but if you noticed a theme in there, finance got mentioned multiple times, and I think that was pretty rare. But I really wanted to point out that SDCERS on May the 31st was awarded the GFOA Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is my 5th consecutive year and 10th consecutive year for SDCERS and 14th overall, and I thought it important to mention that into the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the one other thing is that Tanasi's not here, but I think the opportunity for our staff to speak on behalf of what they've been doing for the last 60 days is always very much appreciated by the board, and I'm glad you guys have the opportunity to finally toot your own horn, so thank you very much. All right, questions, comments from, other than mine, from trustees and staff? Any non-docketed items?
How about a thank you for Shaq?
I did. I gave Shaq right afterwards. All right. Yeah. Good luck wherever you're going. And no docketed items?
I'm on the list. I'm on the speaker list.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to introduce our new internal auditor, Sarah Dixon, who joined us, I think, 3 weeks ago, and we're so happy that she accepted our offer to join us, and it's working out well. And she presented yesterday at the audit committee meeting in closed session, and we're really looking forward to the coming year.
Can I get her name one more time?
Sarah Dixon.
Sarah, thank you. All right. And I think with that, we can adjourn.
And turn these lights out.